All of us, Slovaks, Czechs, Poles, Germans, Americans, we all think about the nation. We all start with the idea of a nation. We identify ourselves in terms of the nation. But no nation is sufficient unto itself, either for security or for prosperity. So the question is then, what other level of international order do we want? The European Union has been an answer to that question for Italians, for Swedes, for the Spanish, the Portuguese, for the Germans, for a whole number of nations, and perhaps most importantly for the new East European members. It's been an answer to that question, or a response to that shortcoming. The nations are not sufficient unto themselves. What we're facing now is a moment where Russian elites are proposing a return to a world in which nations dealt with other nations, states dealt with other states. What history tells us is that in a whole number of different ways, including the First World War and the Second World War, this kind of politics does not really lead to good outcomes in Europe. So there's a very simple historical idea, and that is nations exist, nations are important. States exist, states are important. But the kind of order you have in Europe now, namely the European Union, allows nations and states to continue to exist. In fact, it strengthens them, while meanwhile solving some of their problems, having to do with prosperity and security. That's an order which I think is worth recognizing. It's very rare, it's extraordinary, and it could also cease to exist. So history can tell us that things that we take for granted are actually very difficult to achieve, and also can be at the same time rather fragile. It can't tell us what's going to happen, but it can give us a sense of how special a certain moment can be, but also how quickly that moment can come to an end.